with a 64 present. A Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, once again, welcome to another C64 play guide and review. In this week's episode, we'll be checking out Bruce Lee, published by didnt in 1984. From the title screen, we can press F3 to play either a 1 or a 2 player match. F5 will have our opponents controlled by another player or the computer, and F7 to start the game. In Bruce Lee, we play unsurprisingly as Bruce Lee, and what we have to do is to first of all collect a number of lanterns. To save us from doing that, we also have two opponents, a green sumo guy and a ninja, and the green sumo is apparently Yamo, but I've no idea what the ninja is called. But what we must do is to clear all the lanterns by collecting those on every one of the 3 screens which start this game, and by quickly pressing the fire button on a run, we can then perform a very nice flying kick, and by pressing fire ordinarily, we can punch. It's surprising that this game doesn't feature more moves and arcade plus type maneuvers, but unfortunately we don't get that. If we pull back on the joystick, we can crouch, and if we pull up or diagonal up, we can jump. The opponents, you can see in Bruce Lee, aren't very hard to beat at all. In fact, they are nitwits, so you can outmaneuver and outdefeat those simply by ignoring them, and if you take the correct path around these levels, you will avoid personal hand-to-hand combat as much as possible. Once all the lanterns have been cleared, then a hatch opens up as we make our way down into the underground chambers of the wizard's lair. Now we see the first introduction of timing in this game. Having got rid of the ninja, it's a timed leap into the unknown, and this time we know that we've died. So sometimes timing those things is absolutely crucial, and you might miss those lasers, or whatever they may be, by absolute pixels in this game, as we shall probably see a little later on. We start with 4 lives, and we're down to 3 now, and you will see each one of these 20 screens in this game. Yes, there are only 20 screens, contains a puzzle of its own, usually revolving around these lanterns, and in this case we can only collect that lantern when it is white. If we don't wait for that to happen, then that will not work, and I have definitely been trapped. And yes, you can collect the other lantern on the other side as long as it is white. And it is possible to collect every single lantern, of course, in this game. So there are no bugs, it is a merry journey. And again, every screen develops a new thing to worry about. On the screen it is explosive landmines. The mines are actually delayed. And our best line of defense is to simply run away onto the next screen. And here we go, another puzzle. Do we make it in time? Well, only just about. And collecting that lantern reveals another screen. So the puzzles in this game are very easy, and it's very obvious what the player must do at every stage. And so collecting these will make something happen, and it's almost as though the programming has helped the player by holding their hand through this game, simply by letting the player know that something is going on. And so obviously now something has opened up, and I can now collect the 2 central lanterns. And so this game is so fun and so easy to figure out that it's actually a joy to play, as long as you remember to push up on that ladder, and then you can collect that lantern, collect the other one before it starts reversing and going down again. Because yes, those things do start going down eventually, and it makes climbing up those very difficult. And you might think at this point that if we fell off the bottom of that ladder it would kill us, but no. This game does let the player off, and there's no falling off the bottom of the screen. In fact, the player can jump from any height and not die, so as long as we avoid contact with all these things, we should have no problem. But even though we can jump from the very top of this platform and still survive, if we hit those spikes on the bottom of the screen, well, you'll know about it. So let's move on to another screen, and well, sometimes those things are pretty difficult and sometimes those things are pretty obvious, and if you make the right jump and the right move, just like Dragon's Lair, then you are going to make it. Bruce Lee was coded by Ron J. Fortier, who previously created Conan, a very similar game in 1984, and he moved on to alternate reality in 1986. The graphics were created by Kelly Day, and if you thought Zorro in 1985 looks a little bit like Bruce Lee, well, that's because it was coded graphically by the same guy. So Kelly Day there with a very similar game. And speaking of very similar games, anyone who's played the Goonies will probably be reminded also of a similar format, screen to screen, different ladders, different puzzles. The Goonies was released in 1985, and the music for the Goonies was John A. Fitzpatrick. And John A. Fitzpatrick also created the music for Conan and Zorro. On the Commodore 64 we have escaped from those chambers of death, and you can see a yawning yak heralds the first screens of the tower, which we must negotiate in order to get to the wizard, and that might remind people of Game of Death. But this was a homage to Bruce Lee, and they certainly made full use of the license, although, as I say, you could argue that the number of moves on offer is pretty weak, considering what they could have done with the character and all these directions on the joystick. But what they did provide was a very playable game, and look at that, bouncing off the scenery there. Unless you get that absolutely perfect, it just will not allow it. But it's a very playable game, and if you mess this up, then you know it's your fault. Look at that, we can even crouch our way out of trouble at any point, and then simply leave on a ladder and leave those drones behind. So collecting that last flashing item, which replaces the lanterns on this section, then we can kick some ass hopefully, and once you punch that guy 3 times he should disappear, and if you strike the ninja twice he should melt away into the background as well. But those guys respawn almost instantly, so there's hardly any point doing that, except it gives us a little bonus score. So this bland room in particular with the horrendous colour scheme marks a very interesting screen indeed. Now we can collect these 2 lanterns, but our most important thing is to enter what seems to be pits of death. So if we climb into those, no, we won't get swallowed up, we'll actually be taken to a new level. And it's very easy, it's very quick in fact, and this section is a little game unto itself. All you have to do is to enter one section after the other, complete that, and then we get to gain an extra life at the end, which is probably just as well. Luckily the game respawns the character directly on the screen they died on, and if they collected any items they'll already count as items collected. So let's collect the second of the lanterns on this level, and look at that, ascending that vine stairwell, and let's enter the last room and forever leave this horrendous screen, and that opens up yet another bonus room and another chance to die. You can see the falls on the top of the screen. We have 1 life left, and if we fail yet again then this game is over. I've certainly completed this with all the lives intact plus the bonus lives, of which this is the first one. and I think there are 2 bonus lives in this game available as masks on the wall, or some kind of item. You can see me ascending now the final levels, trying to collect those final lanterns to escape, and now it gives us a very difficult screen indeed. Now timing must be absolutely perfect, and that is absolutely critical on this level. It might look deceptively easy, but yes, we can collide into these electric shocks, and I have been known to die mercilessly on this particular screen. If the player gets on with the job and doesn't hesitate, then they will be able to land on the bottom level and not get fried, but if they do delay it, then unfortunately they won't make it. And that's one of those things that you learn in this game. It doesn't take very long to pick these things up, and the very logical nature of this game simply makes it very addictive, and you really cannot go wrong. And after watching this long play, I'm sure anybody could complete this game, perhaps blindfolded. So I'm about to outmaneuver those guys, and look at that, the green one simply ran off the screen and then rematerialized again. Not quite sure what's happening there, but it's almost like we are in a dream now, and we are able to still play this game, and it's a tremendous game. And so let's maneuver it through these flying fish, what it looks like, but they probably are more electric shocks. Let's maneuver our way around those and try to figure out how we can ascend this particular screen. In conclusion, I'd personally say that even though this game is very addictive, the graphics really do let this down. And, well, what can you say about the graphics and the music, which is virtually non-existent? The sound effects are great, and it creates that great atmosphere, and everything seems functional on the graphics front. But look at the speed of that fall. Sometimes you can fall directly into enemies, and you have to judge these things pixel perfect, look at this, to make it so you can't stop for a second. If you stop on this section like I did, you'll get fried and you'll have to waste another life. So just keep running for the exit, and that's the end of the game. Or rather, it should be, but the game wraps around itself, as we shall see. Taking a look at the scores, Commodore Horizons gave Bruce Lee 60%, your 64 gave it 60%, your Commodore gave this game 75%, Commodore User and Personal Computer Games both gave this game 80%, and the Lemon 64 website gave this a great 87%, and rating this number 16 in the all-time top 100. But that does not beat Zap, who gave the re-release in August 1988 92%. I think this game is a masterpiece, and you can see the game loops. You can see the score does not reset, but the game loops and the enemies are slightly harder. Thank you.